Hi, everyone, and welcome to this free masterclass put on by Plant Allied Recovery about how to work with psychedelics as a person in recovery. I'm Keelia Ryan. I will be guiding you through this masterclass, and make sure that you have a pen and paper so that you can take some notes. There's a lot of information packed into this masterclass. We wanted to have as valuable as a resource for you to really get you started on this path. So first of all, we're going to talk about the Plant Allied Recovery path. So you're going to learn about what Plant Allied Recovery is as a pathway for recovery and to overcome stagnancy in your recovery. You're going to learn about the right mindset and how to get into the right mindset to utilize plant medicines as a person in recovery. We're going to talk about the importance and purpose of pre-integration and psychedelic integration, microdosing versus macrodosing, so the difference and an analysis of both. We're going to talk about safety and precautions. This is very, very important. What safety and precautions for people on this path, not only people who are in recovery on this path, but also just in general, people who are looking to work with psychedelic plant medicine and how to make sure that they are safe on this journey. We're going to talk about community and the psychedelic renaissance and the importance of all of this new wave of research and all of the psychedelic information that's coming out right now. Okay, so let's talk about the Plant Allied Recovery path. Those of us in recovery that choose a path of healing through intentionally working with entheogenic plant medicines choose to claim this path of Plant Allied Recovery. Plant Allied Recovery is a community educational platform and a way of life for those of us who choose to work with their plant allies in a sacred and intentional way. Plant Allied Recovery is for those of us who strive to reclaim our ancient and ancestral relationship to our plant allies and return to our sacred relationship to the plants and to the earth. So the basics. First of all, recovery. We stay deeply committed to the shadow work and recovery practices that got us well. We choose our own path and stay connected to our highest self along the way. This, of course, looks different for everyone, and that is the point, is that each of us has our own unique recovery path and our own unique practices that work for us. Secondly, reverence. When we work with our plant and fungi allies in a way that honors the sentience of the spirit within those medicines and the ancestral practices and traditions of those medicines. So we have a deep, deep reverence for these medicines. They are not something that we are doing for fun. We are not using them. You'll notice throughout this that we talk about language, and using this idea of using even insinuates that we are taking from. And so that is not how we work with these medicines. We have deep reverence for this path. Integration. We integrate our experiences and allow for transformation to happen by staying committed to our integration practices and in conscious contact with our plant allies and our higher power, however that shows up for you. Connection. We stay connected in service to our plant allies and to one another. We know that healing happens best in community. So why psychedelics? There's a lot of reasons for this. Psychedelic plant medicines can aid in forming new habits and rewiring deeply ingrained neural pathways. These substances reduce activity in the brain's default mode network, which is linked to conditions like OCD, depression, and anxiety. The decreased activity in this network can act as a reset for automatic thought patterns and behaviors. Benefits include spiritual, physical, and mental healing contingent on your approach and commitment to integration. Proper utilization and integration of these medicines are essential for realizing their potential. So let's talk about this for a second. When we are deeply stuck in our ways and everything else has not worked for us, psychedelics can really help us transform because they do disrupt that default mode network. Whatever deeply ingrained neural pathways in our brain are just stuck in those ways, by consuming and working with psychedelic medicines, we can allow for increased neuroplasticity and an ability to form new neural pathways and make new connections. That's why this medicine is so helpful for people looking for creative boosts or people looking for healing from deep-seated trauma. And just a note that psychedelics are often the last place that people in recovery go for their healing. But when other methods don't work, it's important to know that plant medicines are there and can support us on our healing journey. As I said before, my name is Kelia. I'm one of the founders of Plant Allied Recovery, and I formed this program for people because of exactly what I wish I would have had when I started out this path. I'm someone that came from a traditional 12-step program. I was very deeply ingrained in that network. And for me, there was always a lot of disempowerment within it. I definitely still took everything to heart because I was desperate to stop using. I was an intravenous heroin and meth addict, and the only option for me, especially with limited resources and funds, was for me to get myself sober through a free program such as AA. And so for me, even after implementing all of the recovery practices that AA had to offer, I still struggled so much with PTSD symptoms and depression. And I was going through EMDR therapy. I had been in trauma therapy for years with complete abstinence, and nothing was working for me. And so that's when I really decided that I needed to try something new. I was going to school for social work. I was even working at a rehab, and I still felt so stagnant. I was working with other people with trauma, and my trauma symptoms were coming up, and I just didn't know what to do. I was really scared that I was going to lose all of my recovery time, and felt like my last place to go was psychedelics. But I knew that because of this reverence and my natural draw and curiosity to these medicines, that it was going to be something that was going to be expansive. And so for me, I started with microdosing. That was what felt like it was in alignment for me at first. And I utilized microdosing to overcome a lot of trauma symptoms. But I will say for me, microdosing only got me so far. And what I needed was something that was a complete reset. And so after a microdosing practice, and I talked to my sponsor, and I lost my entire community. I lost my whole recovery community. I found the plant medicine community through joining a ayahuasca church and starting to work at that church. So after I had my first ceremony, I had profound healing happen. So much trauma, so much guilt all faded away, and I really felt like I was coming into who I was meant to be. I felt really aligned with working within this plant medicine church that I was working at as one of the facilitators. And eventually this brought me down a path of working at multiple retreat centers, studying psychedelic integration, and really shifting my life for the better. However, there were a lot of hiccups along the way, and there was a lot within the plant medicine world that I wish I would have known about as I was entering onto this path. And so I'm here with this Plant Allied Recovery program, and we've created this so that people don't have to go through the same hardships that I did along the way. And I'm not saying this stuff to scare you. I really want you to know that plant medicine has so many incredibly profound healing benefits, but also there are a lot of dangers when you don't have guidance. And so that is why we've created this program. So let's talk about what changes could Plant Allied Recovery bring to your life. Utilizing sacred plant medicines is not the path for everyone, but if you feel the call and are looking to deepen your recovery, it could assist you with moving past the identity of addict or alcoholic and finding your true self, deepening your connection to spirit by having that visceral, real, lived experience of meeting your higher power or meeting the higher self within you. You can have this deepening of your spiritual path. Healing trauma, both experienced and ancestral trauma, connecting to a new way of living in reciprocity with the earth. And this is very important. A lot of Indigenous leaders believe that a part of our dis-ease and sickness and mental health issues is because of us having this disconnect with nature. And so this is an important part of healing. Healing your being physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Overcoming subconscious patterns. Finding a deeper level of spiritual alignment and purpose within your life. and so much more. I mean, I really could add to this list for forever. I have witnessed transformation from people in recovery sitting with plant medicines where they have the experiences within the big book, like the 12-step promises, come true for them. And that feeling of walking hand in hand with God has really come through for them within this program. And so that is just some of the changes that plant allied recovery can bring to people's lives, but there are really so many more. So connecting to your plant allies. When we connect with our plant and fungi allies, what do I mean by that? So this is a concept that dates back to the Stone Ages, this concept of plant spirit shamanism. It's existed in all cultures across the globe for thousands of years. Cultures that didn't interact with each other and our own ancestors knew the power of plants and the power of fungi and the power of connecting to the sentience within those plants. So when people make connections and work with plant spirits such as ayahuasca, San Pedro, mushrooms, they gain a powerful plant ally on their healing path. These plant allies are intelligent beings that have the ability to raise consciousness at a level where deeper healing can take place. We do not believe that everyone has to share in this belief when they get started. It really takes that lived experience of being guided through a ceremony and feeling the intelligence of a really powerful plant allies such as ayahuasca, San Pedro, or mushrooms. It takes that lived feeling. And I know a lot of people come into this path and they've maybe experienced DMT or mushrooms in the past as teenagers. And there is a completely different experience when everything is taken care of, when you have shamanic guidance and you have a proper set and setting and you're setting intentions and you're working within them in this totally new way, you can have a completely different experience. So just as in recovery, we have to keep this open mind about the fact that healing could be possible for us if we follow the simple program that's laid out for us, we have to also keep an open mind for plant allied recovery. And you do not have to come in believing that plants have their own sentient spirits. I certainly didn't when I first entered onto this path. You don't even have to believe that at all throughout the entire program. But when we're talking about connecting with our plant allies, that is the concept of plant allies, is that we are working with the consciousness and the healing spirit within these plants. Plant allied recovery acknowledges that these medicines can support us in our healing journey. When we are ready to take the leap and form a relationship with plant and or fungi spirits to continue our healing journey, we form a relationship by, and once again, these are just some of the ways that we can form this relationship, but connecting with the spiritual essence of these powerful medicines, learning the practices and shamanic knowledge associated with these spirits, conscious contact through prayer and meditation, working directly with these medicines through ritual and ceremony, and applying knowledge to our daily lives. So the knowledge that the plant medicine gives us and ancestral knowledge, what's been passed down and held sacred by the indigenous peoples of this earth who have been keeping these ways safe for us so that we can have healing now. And we go over all of the different ways to connect to your plant allies and to really work with this medicine within our plant allied recovery program. But these are just some of the things that you can do to get you started. The many paths of plant allied recovery. So this is a deeply intuitive process of recovery that looks different for each person. We bridge the gap for people on this journey, whether they're coming from 12-step recovery, they're new in their recovery journey. We help them find balance, healing, harmony on their plant allied path. So you decide the path that's right for you. The important thing is to be educated about the path that you choose. So coming in with that prior knowledge. And also, I would say having a deep reverence as well for the medicine that you're working with and respect and understanding the power of these medicines. You may start with one and choose to shift as you grow and your needs change, as long as you stay accountable to what's best for you. Let's talk about the mindset needed to working with plant medicines as a person in recovery. First of all, we recognize that traditional recovery programs have their place. Many of us got a powerful spiritual foundation as a result of programs like AA, but there is a point where we often hit a roadblock and a plateau. So we do not suggest you throw out what's working. Practicing and living life through the 12 steps is a beautiful way to live. Continue working on the practices that work for you. However, we believe that a person can find their higher power in many forms, including within. So the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous states that we must find a higher power outside of us in some way. If you've been to an AA meeting, you might have heard the acronym GOD, Group of Drunks. We teach people and guide people through is that not only can this higher power come from outside of us, but it can also come within. And so we teach holistic practices to tune into the body to really make sure that we know how to find that higher self within. And so that we can have a strong compass on this path through guidance and through developing self-trust again. We believe that it takes some time to develop self-trust or inner trust, but we can find trust for ourselves again by healing ourselves so that we can show up for life as our higher self, integrated, aligned, and inspired. AA states that they cannot support outside issues. So these are things such as trauma or PTSD or depression. And research is showing that plant medicines have the highest potential in science so far. Of course, the indigenous peoples across the earth who have protected these medicines for thousands of years have always known their healing potential. Science is just now catching up. So AA was birthed from Bill W.'s psychedelic experience. What do I mean by that? If you have read the Big Book, if you are coming from a traditional AA program, then you know that Bill Wilson talks about finding this white light spiritual awakening when he is at the hospital and he falls to his knees and has this very, very extra experience that is not the way that most of us in AA had our spiritual awakenings. But he experiences a spiritual awakening and then decides to implement what he learned from Ebby, which he turned into AA in the 12 steps as we know them. And so when Bill W. was at this hospital, he was on something called a belladonna treatment. It was what was thought to be just the best way to treat alcoholics at the time, but it was something with henbane in it, which is a plant medicine, and it causes hallucinations, oftentimes really dark and scary hallucinations. But Bill W. had this experience of this lived experience while he was under the influence of psychedelics and a plant medicine. And so AA was birthed from plant medicines. Bill W.'s advocacy for psychedelics in the 70s also was put under wraps. So I have here a quote from Bill W. He says, "I am certain that the LSD experience has helped me very much. I find myself with a heightened color perception and an appreciation of beauty almost destroyed by my years of depression." So Bill W. had an experience in the 70s with LSD that transformed his life. And he believed, and he's one of the co-founders of AA, and he believed that this would be a really, really powerful way for addicts and alcoholics to have that lived visceral experience of God, to have those spiritual experiences like they're described in the Big Book. So AA has a success rate of 10 to 15%, and it's the only treatment for a potentially fatal disease that puts the blame on the patient and not on the treatment when it doesn't work. Because a lot of people come to us and they feel stuck. They feel like, well, I've done all of this work in AA. I don't want to lose my community. I don't want to lose my sobriety, and our recovery can be strengthened by this path. So it is true that we should be staying away from certain mind-altering substances, particularly our drugs of choice. Those might be different for each of us, but if we are in right relation with ourselves, we will know the difference. Unfortunately, losing the AA community is highly possible. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It is an experience that often happens, but what I've found is that when people leave, when you do what's best for you, are they really good community? And I can promise you that if you make the best choice for your healing, the people that are meant to stay will stay, and some will come around eventually. We deserve our own autonomy, and to make that decision, we have seen 100% positive results with the clients we've worked with across the board who have found this path directly from AA and some amount of complete abstinence from all mind-altering substances as a reset. So 12-step programs are a powerful pre-integration tool for a psychedelic experience. They really allow you to do so much shadow work and to really come into this program and really come into working with plant medicines and psychedelics with such a grounded way of approaching this and such good foundations and so many incredible tools. And so people who might be nervous to come from their 12-step program into this world, this plant medicine path, I'm here to tell you that it's actually an incredible foundation, and we have tons and tons of clients who can back that up for us. So it is time for a new path to recovery. There's a shortage of mental health professionals. Therapy is incredible. I am not downing therapy. I went to school to be a social worker. It's great, but it's challenging to find a good one, and it can take weeks to see one. Therapy works within the mind, and plant medicines work on the mind, body, and spirit when used properly. And depression is at an all-time high, and we're at a new stage of human evolution. The psychedelic movement happening can heal the people so that humanity and the earth can heal. Once again, it's not for everyone. However, if this path is calling to you, I do believe that it's for a reason. There are people here who have completely transformed and are showing up in their life in a way that they've never been able to, and they're making a difference. Now, AA teaches us that the 12th step, we should be practicing these principles in all of our affairs. And psychedelics can enable us to do that in a better way, in a way that really, really works for us so that we can heal. AA was written in the 1930s. We are needing a new path for recovery, and there are tons of options out there. And any option that you're coming in with is not bad. And I'm not saying that it's bad, but we all change and evolve. And there is a time that we get to our own autonomy and recognizing that we need healing, we need deeper healing. And so if this path is calling for you, this is really to let you know that it's okay and that this is a safe path as long as you are taking precautions and doing it in the right way. So let's talk about language shifts required. Medicines are just that. They're medicine. They can be used irresponsibly, and they can be dangerous if they're not respected for their power. They are not the same as drugs, though. We don't use that language. They have the ability to completely transform your life for the better when used properly. When you consume these medicines, and we'll get into the ability later, but when you consume these medicines, you are opening a direct channel of communication. We don't use language like we got high on. We say things like we sat with, we worked with, we communed with, and we have found that this more accurately describes our process. So these language shifts are important for two reasons. First of all, language is important. Our words are important. And the way that we talk about things is very important for our brain, for rewiring our brain and for opening up those new neural pathways. When we talk about working with psychedelics, we don't use language like use. We do not want to be using these medicines. We want to be working with them, communing with them, sitting in prayer with them, journeying with them. This is the type of language that will help you to shift out of your previous way of being. I mean, even just things like microdosing, we're used to taking a pharmaceutical, and there's so much more that we'll get into later about microdosing and how that's not the way that we need to work with these. It requires an entirely new perspective, an entire shift in how we look at and interact with these medicines. People who are in right relationship with the medicine come to psychedelics with reverence and respect and do the work to integrate their journey, receiving maximum healing benefits. For people in recovery, this extends to authenticity, having people that you can be fully honest with in your life about your path. Accountability, having accountability with yourself so that you are always in balance. People in recovery often struggle with balance and when it comes to new exciting things. And so it's important to have accountability to be in right relation with the medicine, and community. Going back to that authenticity piece, we have to find people that we can be fully ourselves around. And as Johann Hari says, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. So we have to have like-minded individuals that are supportive of our path. And so within the Plant Allied Recovery Program, we can help to set that up for you. Knowledge and extra care, knowing about the safety and potential dangers of sitting and the difference between sitting with good medicine and bad medicine and how to find good practitioners is also very important. And this is how to be in right relationship with the medicine. Plant medicines have a long history. I'm not going to get into this too much, but the Native American Church has been using peyote for 10,000 years. Indigenous cultures employ psychedelic substances for various purposes, including sorcery, spiritual endeavors, physical healing, forging alliance, and cultural engagement. Indigenous healing practices typically rely on 3 core assumptions, and we get into more about these within the Plant Allied Recovery Program. They also employ 3 primary approaches: a heavy reliance on communal, group, and family networks, the use of spiritual beliefs and traditions, and the inclusion of shamans. And this is an important piece that we also go over a lot more within our Plant Allied Recovery Program. These cultures view the mind, body, community, spirit, and nature as a unified entity with no strict separation between daily life, spirituality, and medicine. This is an important way of being and something that we try to practice and employ in our lives. Any imbalance or separation between these elements is often seen as a potential source of illness. So just for you to reflect on, I want you to think about, what does this serve to teach us in Western culture? In Western culture, we don't have a lot of these lineage practices, this community aspect and this idea of being in right relation with the earth. So what would our lives look like if our mind, body, community, spirit, and the land around us was living in harmony and balance? And I just want you to reflect on that. So let's get into psychedelic integration and the importance of pre-integration. First of all, what is psychedelic integration? So this is a process in which a person makes sense of key insights, new awareness, and knowledge gained from their psychedelic experiences. Integration is a process in which a person revisits and actively engages in making sense of, working through, translating, and processing the content of their psychedelic experience. Through intentional effort and supportive practices, this process allows one to gradually capture and incorporate the emergent lessons and insights into their lives, thus moving towards greater balance and wholeness, both internally, mind, body, and spirit, and externally, lifestyle, social relations, and the natural world. So there's a lot of processes for integration, but all integration specialists will agree that it is the most meaningful and impactful piece of the psychedelic experience. Integration is really where the work happens, and pre-integration is a really important piece of this. This is how we prepare for our psychedelic journeys. The process of using psychedelics is more than just the trip itself. That's really important. People think that it is just about when you consume the medicine, and it is not. The medicine starts working through you before you even ingest it. And this is highly studied. People have talked about being called to work with ayahuasca, and the moment that they make that commitment, that plant spirit starts working through them. Their intentions start to shift. Maybe they're going to plant medicine to heal from trauma. And as soon as they decide that they are going to be sitting with ayahuasca, they start to experience these things in their own life and start to experience shifts. And so same with signing up for this program. It's once you make a commitment to those plant allies, you really start to see shifts in your life. So before your journey, you can get ready by setting your intentions. This is what you want to achieve. Learning practices and tools to stay safe and grounded during your experience. Learning about the ancestral practices associated with that medicine. And also just to note, plant medicine ceremonies can bring up challenging things about your life and who you are. So talking to an expert before the experience can help turn these challenges into goals for your experience. So clearing the way for transformation. First of all, when we sit with plant medicines, we want to make sure that we have the proper set and setting. Set refers to mindset. So this is intentions. It also includes being free of expectations. After working at several plant medicine churches and retreat centers, I have seen people who have come in and they are like, my expectation is to travel to this realm and meet this particular spirit guide. And when we have expectations for the medicine, we are not allowing the medicine to work through us. We are telling the medicine what to do. And so there's a very fine line between intention and that allowance and surrender. And so we talk a lot about that in the pre-integration process. and setting vetted facilitation, safety, and sacred space. There is a whole section later on in this masterclass about the importance of vetting facilitators. So that we'll talk more about that later. And then also this idea of dieta. So for some, if you haven't heard of dieta before, for some plant medicines, there is a process of clearing your vessel before you show up. So this includes making sure that you are eating clean foods. And there's a different dieta for each plant medicine, and not all of them require it, but it still is very important to be mindful of what you're putting into your body and what you're consuming. So even think about the music that you listen to, or what type of information, you're consuming through scrolling on social media, because we often are just allowing all of this stimulation to bombard our brain, and we don't think about what is actually good for my brain right now. Like, is it good for me to be looking at all of these memes? And so we talk about this process of dieta and properly preparing yourself for a psychedelic experience. After the experience, an expert can help you make sense of what happened and turn it into steps to improve your life. That is the entire purpose of integration coaching. It's important to think about and understand the experience. Even if you feel confused, taking time to sort through your thoughts can lead to positive changes. So let's talk about the plant-allied recovery psychedelic integration method. Some integration models center primarily on the mind, while others take a more holistic approach. There are many paths to integrating your experience, and it starts before your psychedelic experience. Whether you're interested in a microdose or a macrodose, the entire integration process is of extreme importance to get the most out of your experience. And really, what I want you to know, we go over the psychedelic integration method that we have in our plant-allied recovery program, but really the most important things that you should take away from this slide here is that pre-integration, that's the education and the preparation before a psychedelic experience, is of the utmost importance, as well as the psychedelic experience itself, where you're sitting, making sure that you have good intentions, that you're navigating that space to get the most out of the experience, and also integration. So the tools and processes and practices that enable you to get the most out of your experiences. Let's talk about microdosing versus macrodosing. So just before we get into this, a note about dosages. These medicines really work on a energetic level. So keep in mind, dosing is one of the most nuanced practices in the plant medicine world. That's why so many people seek out guidance when working with medicine alone. And working with a large quantity of medicine, often referred to as a heroic dose, Terence McKenna coined that term, requires a lot of preparation. And it is recommended that the person seeking that experience has an experienced space holder present, or just goes to a retreat center. So as I said, this medicine works on an energetic level, and the same person taking the same strain and batch of medicine can have a more powerful experience one day on less medicine than another day with more. I have seen this happen over and over again. This is why guidance and preparation is so important, because really, dosages don't always matter. Sometimes you can take a very small amount and have a incredibly profound experience. And sometimes you can take a really large amount and not really experience much at all. And there's a lot that goes into how to prepare yourself for these experiences, but just remembering that this works on an energetic level. If you are seeking a macrodose, I highly recommend seeking out a safe retreat center, medicine circle, or plant medicine church. There's much more information on how to vet medicine churches later in this masterclass, but with the right guidance, education, preparation, and relationship to these medicines, it is possible to create a safe container for yourself at home. Just make sure that you're not going in blind. So what is microdosing? To microdose usually means to work with a substance at a dose at which you are not feeling the full hallucinogenic effects. And in some cases, you're not feeling any, so subperceptual. It's defined as consuming between 1% and 10% of a full dose of a psychedelic. And for the purpose of this masterclass, we're going to be talking specifically about psilocybin mushrooms, just for the education, because there are so many different medicines to go over and so little time to fit into this masterclass here. There is also a microdosing workbook that I've included as a gift to you to learn more, to use as a way to journal and to guide you through that experience a little bit deeper. So microdosing works best if the entire time that you're partaking in a microdosing regimen, you're treating that time as sacred and as a ceremony. And it's best for changing small habits, developing a relationship with medicine, and small incremental changes, as well as creativity and boosts of opening up new neural pathways. So I'm actually not going to go over this microdosing schedule because a lot of this information is within the book. I'm just going to talk about how important it is to listen to your body throughout this process. A lot of us want, to just find a schedule that works for them. And there are great schedules, but it's really important to be developing that relationship with that inner self, that inner voice, finding that inner trust through this process. Just download my workbook and that will provide you with all of this information. Let's talk about safety and precautions. So why is safety so important? When you are within a plant medicine ceremony, when you are taking a macrodose, you are in such a sensitive space. You are opening your mind up to forming new neural pathways. I mean, from a scientific level, it is like open heart and open brain surgery. It's also, a lot of plant medicines are known for opening our hearts up. And so you're in a really, really sensitive space. You're open to reprogramming. It's great for transformation when you're in need of major shifts in your life, but it can create challenges when you don't have guidance because you can program in things that aren't good. It's like having, open brain and open heart surgery with no guidance when you're trying to do this alone. And there's little regulation, and capitalism has taken notice of the profitable nature of ceremony. And unfortunately, especially within the States, there are a lot more unsafe spaces than safe spaces. And honestly, the safest spaces are usually the ones that aren't advertising and that are all word of mouth. And so that's why we provide our clients with a vetted list of centers that are doing underground work that are just some of the best in the country. We also have some international spaces as well that we provide for people. There is a higher demand for psychedelic services than there are people to serve. That's because it takes years to properly train to serve medicine. Ayahuasca shaman average 8 years in the jungle just to train to serve. And these medicines are dangerous if not used properly. And so really making sure that you feel so good and so safe and you're just able to come into this medicine and receive the healing that you deserve. That's why we provide these slides. It's not so much to scare you. As I said, my entire life has shifted and I am dedicated to providing information on how to find these safe spaces. And so it just takes proper precautions and vetting who you sit with. And that can be the difference between the most profound healing experience of your life or the most challenging trauma of your life. So every medicine has its own risks associated with it. They're non-specific amplifiers. So that means that if someone is coming into the medicine, and it depends on the medicine, but if they're coming into maybe working with mushrooms or LSD, it's going to amplify what's already there. And so this idea of ego inflation, now, if you've done any research on medicine, you've probably heard that plant medicine can create an ego death experience, which is a really profound experience. However, the opposite can happen without proper guidance. And as we know, as people in recovery, that ego inflation can lead to a lot of dangerous behaviors for us. So also, another risk is that you may lose part of your recovery community. I also want to speak about the dark night of the soul. So this is a term that is used for when people have a spiritual awakening. There's a bit of a disillusionment where they look at the way society is and they look at the way that the world is operating and they just feel a sense of sadness and emptiness for a time. And so this is also something that can happen when you're working with these medicines, is you can be like, wow, everyone is so disconnected and it's really hard to be a human in this society. And that's a normal part of the experience. And we guide you through how to overcome that in our program. And then, of course, sitting with bad medicine, as I just shared about, you can sit with medicine that is spiked, or you can get something online that might be, have some sort of other substance in it as well to cut costs. And so really making sure that you know where you're getting your medicine from. You know the people that you're sitting with are vetted by people who are working in this path or who have experienced them before is important. So types of challenging plant medicine experiences. There's abuse that can happen. I mentioned that this experience happened to me. There's negligence, and this is from inexperienced medicine carriers who don't know how to properly hold the container, which can cause harm. I've experienced this as well. And then also confusion. So there can be a lot of confusion when medicine experiences aren't clear. And so without proper integration, it's really, really challenging to integrate from these experiences on your own. So we've gotten into this a lot already so far, but it's really important to vet your medicine carriers. So just some guidelines here. Do your research, check Reddit, Google, talk to people. If there's anything sketchy, in my opinion, it is absolutely not worth the risk. If there is anyone saying, hey, this place isn't safe, even if there's a whole long list of good testimonials, in my experience, just find another space. You can also ask questions. Ask the medicine carrier if they have elders and teachers and how many ceremonies they have led and what was their training like and how trained are the facilitators or guardians that are holding space. You can ask them what they do when someone has a hard experience with the medicine. And so really making sure that you ask as many questions as possible. It's challenging because sometimes you might not know the answers that you're looking for, and that's why having guidance is so important. And sometimes, like I said, I've vetted medicine carriers that weren't good, and so that's why I'm extremely careful now with this list that I have that I provide our participants, and it is mostly people underground. So check for testimonials, but beware because the medicine itself can provide a healing experience for someone, and people can have a positive experience even if the container is unsafe for others. And ask people their lineage, get a direct referral from someone you know. Community and the psychedelic renaissance. It is really, really important that psychedelics are coming back online and being talked about at this time. We as a collective need to heal. There is so much healing that is needed, and there are so many challenges that the future holds, and there's a lot of uncertainty in this world. And so psychedelics and plant medicines are accelerators for our healing. Our plant and fungi allies help us to commune with nature, and we must return to these old ways of being in order to save the earth, so earth-based practices. We are constantly surrounded by toxicity in what we consume for content, food, habits, etc., and these medicines can help us make shifts that benefit all. And I really believe that these are the reasons that medicines are making such a huge comeback right now, is because we need them. And there are theories that at previous times when humanity made huge leaps and bounds, that this was a direct relation to them working with medicines like mushrooms. If you've read up on the stoned ape theory, you would know this. But these medicines are incredibly powerful, and I believe that they can help to heal humanity and the earth. It's important that we keep an open mind and that we allow ourselves to shift into this way. Finding a stable plant medicine community in Western culture, just finding a stable recovery community can be hard work. So we know that a lack of community can be a death sentence for people in recovery. When people in recovery sit with plant medicines, they risk losing their recovery community. To properly integrate medicine experiences, it's important to discuss these experiences in an accepting, understanding, and safe environment. This is why we provide community within the Plant Allied Recovery Program. It's so important to have people to talk to. And also, being sneaky about our plant medicine use just re-ingrains those old neural pathways of hiding our using. And so for people in recovery especially, it is so, so important for us to have a community and having people who understand your path and who you can be 100% authentic with. And so the Plant Allied Recovery Program can support you with community virtually with opportunities for in-person gatherings. This is one of ours. Thank you so much for watching this masterclass. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please visit plantalliedrecovery.com and apply for our program if you haven't already. And we're just so excited. We really empower people to safely utilize plant medicine for their own healing and transformation. It can be so, so powerful to get to take healing into your own hands like this. And that's what we really do. It's funny, we don't heal people ourselves. We just give people the tools so that they can heal themselves and that they can find the safe spaces so that they can achieve the healing and the transformation that they're looking for. So I really hope that you enjoyed this masterclass. So look forward to meeting you in the future.